He's an entrepreneur, leader, and founder of several successful technology companies. In his most recent venture, which is Dova, he co-founded in 2002 and he's the current chairman there. During the past 5 years, he has led the company, and Dova has grown over 8,000%. So I think he knows what he's doing. You know, a little bit. For 2007, Dova is ranked number 23 on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest-growing privately held companies in America. Number 1 on the Utah 100 list of fastest-growing companies in Utah. And number 6 on the Lloyd's Technology Fast 500 list of the fastest-growing technology companies in North America. Jeremy was also listed on Utah Valley Business Q's Top 40 Under 40. He was recognized as an outstanding young entrepreneur by Connect Magazine and was listed on the B100 list of top venture entrepreneurs by B-Spring Capital. He's also an accomplished author and speaker. He's a co-author of eBay, Inventory the Smart Way, and of Drop Shipping for Dummies. And that's a really important concept that we should talk about. He is regularly interviewed and quoted in e-commerce and entrepreneur-focused publications such as Entrepreneur, E-Commerce Guide, Practical E-Commerce Connect, and Utah Business. He's a 3-time returning guest speaker at eBay Live. So if you go on his website, when they're on there yesterday, it has pictures of him on eBay Live. And, you know, you can see this pictures there. So, anyways, he's a 3-time returning. He's earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Management from Brigham Young University in 2004, 12 calendar years after he enrolled as a freshman in 1992. So there's hope for all of us. He's an outdoor enthusiast, and he enjoys hiking, backpacking, climbing, and mountain biking. He lives in Lehigh with his wife Amy and their 2 children, Caitlin and Alex. So let's give a round of applause for him. Thanks. So can it? Oh, my bad. Can you guys hear me? Is that loud enough? Okay, sweet. So I'm happy to be here today. You know, that whole long introduction thing, I think, is supposed to make it look like I know what I'm talking about, so that you guys actually listen and, you know, don't jump on your computers on the internet and play like web games or something. So, but I am happy to be here. It's good to be back here at BYU. I don't get up to campus much, even though I'm just down the street. So, anyway, today we want to talk about a few things. This is the eBusiness lecture series, so of course the theme is going to be about eBusiness, and I want to try to help explain some of the things that I've seen in the last 9-10 years in the world of what I consider eBusiness, and hopefully at the end of the day, what I'm able to talk about gives you some ideas. I mean, that's kind of why what I hope to have you take away from this is that you walk away saying, hey, I have some ideas that I didn't have before. So we're going to go over a few things. If my clicker's working, hold on. I haven't used this clicker with this mouse yet, so I think I've got some sort of weird thing going here. Okay, sweet. All right. So real quick, who in the room uses Macs? Big round of applause for all of those that are smarter than the rest of you guys, because you can't do stuff like this with PowerPoint. You just can't do it. It's just not near as cool. So go get you a Mac. You'll be better off. So we're going to talk about a quick history of my current company, Dova. History, kind of an overview. We'll go over eBusiness, kind of market forces, and then hopefully I can talk about, just give you guys a glimpse of some of the things that I see coming down the pipe, the future of eBusiness and kind of where things are headed. So, and wrap that into this concept of the long tail of physical products, and what does that mean? I started a company in 2001. Well, actually, it's more like 2000. And it was called GearTrade.com. And basically, I grew up in a small town in Idaho. I grew up in Burley, Idaho. And there was a guy that I knew that him and his dad would, at the end of the season, so in about 2 months from now, all of the ski companies, and snowboard companies, what they're going to realize is they made too many skis. And it happens all the time. I made too many of this model of ski. So they look for people to liquidate that. They don't want it. They need to have their cash so that they can make more skis. So these guys buy these skis. They buy hundreds, thousands of pairs of skis, and then they spend the summer and they take bindings and they mount bindings and they build these packages of skis, and then they go fly fishing and they don't do a lot of other things. And then in the fall they load up their horse trailer with big 55-gallon drums, garbage pails, big, huge garbage pails, and they stick all these skis in there,
and they load them up and they drive around all over the western United States. They go to Sun Valley and Park City and Los Angeles, and anywhere there's a ski swap, they go and they sell these things. And they make an insane amount of money, and they do really well. And this is at the time that I was in the process of dropping out of school. And I was working at a company called AuthorizeNet, which is internet payment processing gateway. And I'm like, there's a better way to do a ski swap than driving skis around in a horse trailer. So basically, that's what Gear Trade was, and it was focused on outdoor recreation products. At the end of the day, we merged and created a business called E3 Vertical, and basically that company took the Gear Trade idea, which was this closeout and used marketplace, and we also said, well, we can also do e-commerce solutions for the same retailers and consumers that we're working on this other solution at Gear Trade. And so we launched this E3 Vertical. And at the end of the day, we sold that business. And then the person that we sold it to sold Gear Trade piece to the guys who run backcountry.com. So actually that was the slide. So you can go to Gear Trade, it still runs. And the biggest thing throughout that experience is, over a couple of years, is I saw what led us to Doba. And what I saw is that the typical world of business to business is really messed up. On average, in the outdoor recreation industry, on average, if who in here does outdoor recreation stuff, skiing, snowboarding, hiking, backpacking, let's use REI, right? So REI is a pretty big store. Well, let's take it one step down and say like Park Sportsman over here in Orem. If you walk into Park Sportsman, on average, they have 13% of the product lines of the manufacturers that they carry. So Park Sportsman sells Columbia, right? They sell North Face. On average, they only have 13% of the Columbia and North Face product SKUs in their store. If you think about the fact that Park Sportsman doesn't sell Patagonia, you really get to the point where when you walk into a physical store, you're talking as a customer, you might see 1 or 2% of all of the available products being created for you to buy. The trick that I saw, the other piece of it is, it was the exact same way in e-commerce. And so basically what happened is e-commerce was running the exact same way. And I said, wait a minute, e-commerce is significantly different than Park Sportsman, because the consumer's not walking into Park Sportsman down on Center Street. They're going to parksportsman.com. And all of a sudden that relationship is a virtual relationship. And so why should the business-to-business side run the same way, as it always has, when the business-to-consumer side has drastically changed in the short span of a few years? And basically what you find is this, is that, get out my green laser pointer, it'll blind people. So the suppliers, when they want to find the Park Sportsmans of the world, every time they do that, whether it's online or offline, they have to have a one-to-one relationship. You have all these lines. And then the flip side is true. Every time a retailer, retailers are working with North Face and with Columbia and with K2 Skis and with Hot Fingers gloves. I mean, they're working with all these companies. And so at the end of the day, you end up with this. And that is not, any math majors in here? Does that have a name if you're in mathematics? Is that like a trapezoidal kind of thing? But anyway, it looks kind of cool, but all of that represents a lot of things happening. It represents this list of stuff. Where do I spend my limited dollars to buy inventory? If I'm the manufacturer, where do I spend my limited dollars to make inventory? Where's my fraud exposure? There's so much going on. Every one of those lines represents an extremely complex relationship and flow of data, information, transactions. And that's the way the world works. That's the way the world works offline. It's the way the world was evolving to be online as well, because even though you had online retailers, they were still doing all of this kind of the way that it's been done for years and years and years. And you end up with what I call consumers versus products. And that's something we're going to talk about today with this idea of the long tail. But it means that consumers have extremely limited choice. And so on my little chart, I only have 3 of these, all of these product boxes. There's only 3. And a lot of consumers are grayed out. If you're a grayed out consumer, it means you don't get to buy what you want to buy. Basically what Doba does, and with the solution that we saw, is if we can aggregate the business-to-business side and put it all through one place, then we can solve that main problem, where the supplier can work with Doba, so this line works to Doba, and through our platform, which is basically it's a virtual inventory and a fulfillment system, they get access to, currently we have 25,000 retailers. So now instead of having to have 25,000 relationships, they only have to have one relationship. And on the flip side, if you're a retailer and you have this line working with Doba, you get access to currently 300 different suppliers across all product categories, and we have almost 3 million different unique product SKUs that you have access to. So, once again, one line gives you access to 300 people and 300 suppliers and manufacturers instead of having, 300 lines. The core of what we do also kind of is based on the premise that the more times you move, something, the more times this laser pointer gets moved on its way to when I bought it or when our IT guy at Doba bought it for me, the more cost is introduced. It was made probably, I'm guessing, in China. It's got to move, it's got to move, it's got to move. So we basically said, besides enabling all of these one-to-many transactions and relationships, we're going to also do drop shipping, direct fulfillment, which is these people have to touch the products. I mean, there's no way around the fact that the North Face, they make the jacket, they've got to touch it. But when you talk about a retailer who is an e-tailer who sells online and you're not walking into his physical store, is there a good reason for him to touch all of the inventory he sells? So what we facilitate is the fact that these products, they sit with the suppliers, they come into our technology platform so that these retailers can see a virtual catalog, a virtual warehouse of all of the different products, the 3 million unique SKUs that these companies have. They can go sell those products without ever touching them. And once they sell them, the supplier drop ships it directly to the customer. So we've basically done the business-to-business side of what eBay and Yahoo and websites have done for the business-to-consumer side. This is virtual online because customers are going to Amazon.com, and we help the back-end business-to-business piece be virtual as well. At the end of the day, you get more choices for the customers because you can make the inventory virtual. You don't have to have physical products anymore until somebody says, raise their hand and say they want to buy it. So basically, this is a picture of our. This is a picture of our web interface, which is the virtual catalog. You can see we've got products in every product category. I did a search for the term blue, and you can see, everything, all kinds of different products. And there's a picture of our marketing and our homepage. Again, we have 25,000 retail customers. We have almost 300 wholesale suppliers, and that's kind of the gear trade story. It started with guys driving skis around the country, and I'm saying there's a better way to do that. And then I learned a lot of things. And so what I want to talk about next is kind of what I learned and how that applies to eBusiness. So I have a question. So what did the internet offer to gear trade that was different than my friend that used the horse trailer and the ski swap model? What was it about the internet that allowed us to kind of do what we did at Gear Trade, this giant online ski swap? Does anybody have any ideas? Yeah. Reach, exactly. So it's reach. It removed the geographic barriers, because they can only get to so many ski swaps. And if the Park City ski swap is on the same day as the Sun Valley ski swap, now you got a problem because you only got one pickup truck and one horse trailer. So what are you going to do? So those kinds of things go away. So it removed that barrier. And what's the core development that allowed Gear Trade to not have a geographic barrier? Does anybody have any ideas about what that is? I've mentioned it a couple times already while I've been talking. Not drop shipping. No ideas? Come on, yeah.
You don't have to have the physical inventory.
Exactly. It allowed things to be virtual. These products, that jacket, on one hand it does exist physically because somebody was selling that jacket. It was a new, I think these are all new products, but we had used products too. But somebody had that jacket somewhere. But here this is a picture. It's virtual. If you couldn't make it virtual, then you're stuck back with horse trailers driving to Park City High School with this jacket. And it can only be in one place at one time. Making things virtual allowed it to be in literally millions of places at one time. So back now to Doba. What's the core thing that the web offers to Doba, that the internet facilitates with Doba? Any ideas? Kind of our core model. I talked about what's the problem that retailers can only have so much product in their store. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You don't have to have inventory. What the number one challenge that a retailer faces is the term's called open to buy. My open dollars to buy. You know, if I buy things and stick them on my shelf, I don't have the cash anymore. I have inventory. So that means I can't buy something new. I have to sell that first. So it removes the space and the dollar requirement of inventory by making it virtual again. So again, I want to shift gears. So that's my story. You know, it said I dropped out of school. I came back. I finished, graduated in 2004 with business management degree here from the Y. It took me 12 years, of elapsed time. And when I came back, I'll be honest with you, I didn't care about grades. I got C's, and I was happy. And I took a lot of independent study, internet classes, and just, but I wanted to finish what I started because I think that's an important thing. That's a true entrepreneurship trait. So moving on, I want to kind of now, talking a little bit specifics about what I've done and what I've seen, but also now apply that to this idea of e-business. So who has a good definition of e-business? Anybody? Nobody? You're at the e-business lecture series and you don't know how to define e-business? Come on, somebody can define e-business. Yeah, right there in the back.
Use of electronic networks and information technology to exchange business information and execute transactions.
There you go. So I grabbed that from the Rollins Center website. So the use of networked information technology to exchange business information and conduct transactions in electronic form. So I wanted to try to think about a little bit, what does it mean to me? So I have some examples. So I think e-business is the difference between this as a printed invoice that I actually print and that, which is my invoice lives virtually inside of my accounting program. I think it's the difference between a physical magazine. Has anybody read Business 2.0? One person, nobody else has read Business 2.0? How was the latest issue of Business 2.0? There is no latest issue. They went out of business. They closed that magazine because it was replaced a lot by online virtual ways to consume the same kind of information. This is a blog called TechCrunch that covers the exact same types of things that Business 2.0 did. Who has used one of those in the last year? An actual printed airline ticket, not like a printed ticket. Okay, who has used one of these in the last year, which is my boarding pass? It's a virtual boarding pass. Do you know what that is? No, that is an actual copy of the check that we paid when we bought, the United States paid to Russia when we bought Alaska. How many people write checks like this and get copies of their checks back? Like that copy of that check exists because we kept a copy of it. Who gets their checks back every month, every check you write? One person. How many of you get this instead, which is you have a picture of your check that you get through your website? Who wrote a letter like this in the last year? Like a physical handwritten letter? Okay, so there's a few. Who in here has written an email in the last hour? Again, so it's just the difference. When was the last time you talked on a phone with a cord? Right? But that got replaced, by instant messaging with live chat. But that's getting replaced with mobile, with cell phones, and all of these ways. Twitter. Are you familiar with Twitter? A little bit. Nobody. Twitter. Basically, it's like at any given minute. Like right now, if I were using Twitter, I'd be on my little Crackberry and I'd be like, I'm presenting at BYU, and like broadcast it out to my friends exactly what I'm doing, minute by minute, play by play. These are all replacing phone. Text messaging. How many of you guys send 50 text messages a day? You got big texters in here or not? Maybe it's the wrong crowd. What's that? A little younger. The generation even just behind you guys, I think that they might never even use a phone. I have that at my company where people don't use phones anymore. They text message. They don't, and they email. They actually have an aversion to picking up the phone. Something's going on. Journals, handwritten journals. Some of us still probably do that. My journal is my website, my web blog. And it's very heavily focused on what I do for business. You know, I throw a little bit of family stuff in there, but at the same time, I spend most of my time, you know, working. And so, I mean, you can go back over the last couple of years and have a pretty dang good snapshot of who I am and how I think and what I do. You know, this is some random BYU student, and you know, there's the BYU library blog. They're replacing journals. It's, you know, photo albums. Who makes photo albums like these anymore? Or do you just upload your pictures to, you know, Flickr? And there's my online, you know, online photo album of my trip to the Wind Rivers a year ago. Basically, e-business, the way I define it, is the virtualization of physical things. So anything that can become ones and zeros instead of whatever it was physically, you know, is e-business. And there's an interesting piece of that, which is e-business also is it's very important that e-business facilitates things staying ones and zeros as long as possible. The longer things stay ones and zeros until it becomes a physical product, which is very core to what Doba does, the more value you have, the less costs you have, the more efficient things are. So all these ones and zeros, that's what I think e-business is. I think e-business, I mean, and it's a broad net. It's not just the internet. You know, it's very, very broad, and it's been happening for quite a while before the internet because of things like EDI, electronic data interchange, and things like that. But e-business, I think, is the most disruptive force probably since like the printing press or the Industrial Revolution. I mean, this is a true revolution where ones and zeros are replacing physical things. So I want to talk a little bit about this. Do you know what that is? I mentioned it earlier. The long tail. Yeah, the long tail. So I want to talk a little bit about what this is. Basically, it's kind of a different way to look at the 80-20 rule. Familiar with the 80-20 rule? Basically, when you take the popularity of products or of kind of anything and you plot it, you know, how popular it is based on the numbers of products, you get a graph that looks like this. This part of the tail here is called the head. This part is called the long tail. And the interesting thing is that long tail, they claim in mathematics, never goes to zero. It goes for infinity. And what this basically represents is the difference between Walmart, you know, and the difference between all of the millions of other ways and places you can buy products. If you think about Walmart, they only have so much room under that giant roof that they build when they build those stores. So they have to be very careful what they buy. You know, they'll only buy stuff that they can sell, you know, 10, 20, 50,000, you know, across some geographic region. They wouldn't touch this green laser pointer ever because it's a niche product. It's, you know, it's out here. So I want to actually talk about a way to kind of illustrate this. So there should be some audio coming in just a sec. Okay, who knows this song? What song is it? Hollywood by Collective Soul. Okay, you've heard this song. Who's heard this song before? Okay, so probably half the class. Okay, what about this song? What song is it? By who? Who's heard this song? Like once in your life at least. Seriously, there's some people who have never heard this song once in their life. Okay. All right, so I got one more song. It takes just a sec to get playing. Okay, so here's the song. Nice guitars coming in, right? Who's heard this song? Give it a second, it'll probably come to you. Who likes this song? Who thinks it sounds pretty cool? Be honest, who thinks it sounds good? So, you know, like, I don't know, 20 people? It's kind of got some guitars, you know. We'll let it play just a second. I want to see if, you know, I hope somebody gets it. So let the chorus come in here. Here it comes. A little screaming there, kind of screaming rock. What do you think? Is it a good song? Nobody's heard this song? So, ACD? No, so here's the thing. Last time I presented in October, someone up here was sure he had heard that song working out down at Gold's Gym. And I said, you know, there's no way you've heard that song because it was written by a Doba employee. And he wrote it for what we do at Doba Day. And he recorded everything. He did the audio, he did the vocals, he did the guitars, he did the bass, he did the drums, and he mixed it all together. And if you listen to the lyrics, you know, it's about Doba. Push requests, There's a line that says that guy Hanks is a freaking genius, which I thought was kind of cool. But nobody in this room has heard that song. But I had 20 people say, hey, that kind of sounds catchy. That's kind of a good song. So where does that song fit on this long tail? Probably like Core over there, you know. Where does U2 and Collective Soul and guys like that sit? You know, they're like right there. I mean, that Hollywood song from Collective Soul, it's one of the most successful songs probably in the last 20 years. You know, U2, same kind of thing. They win Grammys, right? The idea, though, is some of you might want to listen to that song on the way home after this lecture. You know, you might want to put that, you know, that it's called Take Me There is the name of the song. You might want to stick it in your car and, you know, rock out on your way home. But you never have heard about it. So the idea is, the core of the long tail is that given preference, we're all so unique individuals. What we like is different than anybody else. So we want more choice. Consumers, you know, us as humans, will always pick more choices over less choices. The problem is, you know, Walmart gives me a very finite amount of choices. You know, but then you think about this virtualization of e-business. What has happened to music? Who has bought a physical CD compared to downloads? I mean, who downloads music in here off the web? You know, who buys physical CDs, you know, on a regular basis? You know, it's going virtual. What happens when music goes virtual? The production cost to distribute that music almost goes to zero. It literally, I mean, the CDs cost money. You got to burn them. You got to wrap them, you got to ship them. They're not air, they cost money. But ones and zeros are almost free. So it allows music. I mean, iTunes, you know, has so many more products than what Target has in their music, you know, section. And you can find products like this Take Me There from Wes, you know, from Doba. Very, very unique things. So that's the idea of the long tail, is that e-business really is at the core driver of this idea that you can have so many more options. So I want to use another example, not music. Music is the extreme. Videos are the extreme because of they can be turned into ones and zeros. So I want to talk about the world I know really well, which is, you know, outdoors. So REI, LL Bean, Sports Authority, Dick's Sporting Goods, Backcountry.com. These are the kinds of tents that those companies sell. I own a couple like this, right? Why don't they sell tents like those? They're not popular. They're not up the popularity chart. They have to make decisions on where do I spend my money, where do I spend my time, and I can only sell things that are here. But are there people who would like to buy those tents? Definitely there are. I like this tent in particular. You know, and I think that if you use that tent, if you sold that tent, you could probably find a little niche and find people who like little tents. Maybe, you know, maybe even me. You know, maybe I launch a website called ilovepinktents.com or Pink Tents or Tents for the Ladies. And what do you have now? You have the situation where, could you ever go over here to Orem right next to Park Sports on State Street and open up a pink tent store? A pink tent superstore. Would that work? No way. There's no way there's enough people here in Utah that you'd go out of business within a day probably. Your rent would kill you. But if you launched a website called pinktents.com or tentsfortheladies.com, and if you had, I mean, not to plug our company because we have competitors, but if you had a Doba that allowed you to virtually source these tents, all of a sudden the relationship between you and the customer is a bunch of ones and zeros. And that tent is ones and zeros because it's just a picture, it's just words. And then if if somebody actually orders it, it's still ones and zeros, and then it turns into a real tent in a real box that gets shipped to somebody. You know, hardcore dudes use pinktents.com. That's the one I'll probably go with. You know, I'm going to start this whole thing. Like, hey, if I'm an ice climber, I'm a mountaineer, I'm going to use pink tents just to prove how tough I am. You know, but you can build those kind of things. This happens on a daily basis. People sell things. We have a customer at Doba. She sells leather jackets that are made out of pieces of leather. They're not like leather jackets. They're like little pieces of leather, like that big, all sewn together, and they kind of smell. Okay? They're not very nice. If I had one, you would say, that kind of doesn't look that nice. She sells $150,000 of those things, wholesale dollars. So through Doba every year. I don't know how, but she found a niche. You know, she's doing that. So, fundamentally, the long tail is about uniqueness. It's about choice, and it's about e-business driving This idea of long tail physical products. The long tail of music can almost get to the point where it's virtual throughout the whole thing, because the music is created on the guitar, it's recorded virtually, it's distributed to you guys through iTunes virtually, it sits on your iPod, it's a bunch of ones and zeros. That's an almost complete circle of virtualization. Physical products are very different because this laser pointer exists in the real world, and it's got to exist in the real world. But if you can keep it virtual longer, it's more efficient. So, Barnes & Noble. Average number of books in a Barnes & Noble. Any guesses? This is a huge one, like in Pittsburgh or somewhere. Number of book titles in a Barnes & Noble. No guesses? Somebody, come on, you got to guess, even if you say 10. 10,000, 50,000. They have 100,000. How many does Amazon have? 4 million. Did you know that Amazon, listen carefully on this, 25% of Amazon's sales come from books outside of its 100,000 top-selling books. So basically, if Barnes & Noble only has 100,000 books, you would expect that they would pick the 100,000 best-selling books. That means Amazon, by default, sells 25% more than them because they don't even have the books in their store. Does that make sense? So there's Amazon. Blockbuster. How many titles in an average Blockbuster store? 6,000? 3,000 exactly. How many videos do you think have been produced? History, documentaries. How much has Hollywood cranked out? 200,000. So they have 3,000 out of 200,000. Netflix, and this number is actually out of date, it's closer to 90,000 now, they have 90,000. So what's 3 into 90? 3,000 into 90,000. 30 times, something like that. 30 times more available for you to choose. So, market forces that are at play. E-commerce is fundamentally driving this process of the virtualization of physical stores, right? The long tail concept helps things be more unique. And when you combine those two ideas together, e-business and e-commerce is driving this long tail physical products, and digital products, but it's driving more choices for customers. So, long tail. I recommend reading the book. I think it's one of the best business books I've read in the last, as long as I've been reading business books. It's very thought-provoking, talks a lot about some of the things that are coming down the road. It's written by Chris Anderson. He's the editor-in-chief of Wired magazine. It's definitely worth your time. So, next question, what comes next? So this is the point where I try to help you guys understand, not brainstorm, but give you some thought-provoking stuff of where the world's going. So, what's going to happen in e-commerce? Social commerce. This is a website called shopstyle.com. I can go on and register, and I can put on my black pants in my profile and my shoes, and my Cole Haan belt and my Nordstrom shirt here. And if you guys are sitting out there saying, man, that Jeremy looks pretty sharp today, he's a pretty good looking guy, I want to look just like him, you can see my profile, hit a button, buy the clothes. It's social commerce. This is going to be big. Movie stars are going to put up their profiles. Companies that are on the cutting edge, that need people to do that. In the outdoors, you're going to see things where Ed Viesturs, who is the first American to climb all 14 8,000-meter peaks, is going to talk about the tent that he used, and I can buy his stuff right away. So it's an idea of social commerce. That's something that I would, spend time thinking about. Radical Buy. So eBay, Radical Buy is a Facebook application. My mind just went blank. Mark Cuban is behind this, and their goal is to put eBay out of business through social networking, through Facebook. No reason to go to eBay and buy stuff when you can buy stuff from your friends on Facebook. These are the kinds of things that are coming. Zelio is an e-commerce company where you can set up a store and pick products and then just get commissions. So I could build a little store with my favorite outdoor gear and give you guys all the link, and then I get paid for referring my friends and being kind of a trusted thing. The next piece of things that are changing outside of e-commerce is marketplaces. eBay is one of the most successful marketplaces of all time. Any marketplace, you have people on both sides of the equation, buyers and sellers. New York Stock Exchange is a marketplace for stock. eBay is a marketplace for a lot of stuff. They call it stuff. Maybe some people might call it garbage. But anyway, eBay is a huge they've changed some things. I don't know if it's going to be eBay in 20 years. But the idea of a marketplace becomes so efficient when it's electronic, when it's based on eBusiness, when it's based on ones and zeros. And eBay did that. Another company is called MFG. Basically, if you need to get something built, right? So you have this little CAD drawing of a little gear that you need built. You upload it here. People all over the world bid on it, and you actually find the best provider to machine that little gear and deliver it to you based on your specifications. So they've virtualized the process of sourcing like manufactured parts. Alibaba. Has anybody heard of Alibaba before? A couple people. One of the most successful, I think his second most successful IPO in the history of the world, next to Google. So you guys should, pay attention. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, they're based in China. They've virtualized the process of linking people who need products made to similar to MFG but not machined. I could see that right there, quilted jackets. I could go online, I could say, I'm going to create a new outdoor brand called Jeremy's Cool Outdoor Gear, and I can have Chinese suppliers or wherever in the world give me quotes and bids on what it's going to cost to make my jackets and embroider my cool little logo. So basically they're virtualizing these kinds of things. Doba is a marketplace. We are a business-to-business marketplace that virtualizes a lot of the things. Marketplaces are, and with eBusiness, so many more of them can be made virtual. So just some things to think about. Mass customization. I can go to landsend.com and they'll build me a pair of jeans for me. So if you remember what I said about keeping a product virtual? So this takes it clear back to the manufacturing of the product. Doba takes it back to where it's sitting in a warehouse before you start shipping it around. They don't even make the stuff. You're pushing it back to the raw materials. They've got big rolls of denim, and you come in and you say, I want what kind of fabric, what's my color, I want traditional or relaxed and ride, and I punch in my measurements, and they sew me up a pair of jeans. Dell Computers pioneered mass customization, built to order. You can go to Timberland, and you can actually build boots. And I would pay money to see people walking around. If anybody wants to, I'll give you $20 if you buy that boot and actually come show me. It's like purplish blue weird boot, but you can customize boots. Nike has a website, NikeID.com. You should check it out. It's pretty cool. You can build any nasty looking shoe you want. I mean, literally, like so ugly that you probably you'd have all the trails to yourself because you'd be running and people just faint when they saw them. And you can embroider your name on them, and I mean, you name it. You can do anything you want. Another company is called Beyond Fleece. This is a company I got to know. They do the same thing with jackets. I have a fleece jacket that they made, like a windstopper fleece jacket. They measured me, because I went and toured their facility. I could have measured myself, measured my arms, everything. I'm right between medium and large in almost everything. It's like if I buy the medium, it's like maybe it's too small. If I buy the large, maybe it's too big. That jacket fits me so perfectly, it's ridiculous because they made it for me. They kept the product virtual till I said I want a product. Huge amounts of mass customization. CafePress.com. You can get onto Cafe Press. You can buy anything. You can, I can upload. You could take a picture of me standing right here presenting, upload it, and 5 minutes later you can buy a T-shirt, and 2 days later it's at your house with my picture on the T-shirt. I mean, mass customization. Again, virtual till the last minute. Good Storm is another one. Mass customization of all these kinds of shirts. Don't tase me, bro. Did you ever see that? Who saw that video on YouTube? Don't tase me, right? So probably within 5 minutes, you could go buy your. Think about the old world. If they, for Nordstrom to get "Don't Tase Me, Bro" shirts, how would that have happened? It would have been cool. They would have had to. Somebody would have had to decide to do it. Then they would have had to find a supplier in China, and they'd have to do quality runs. And then they'd say, okay, put in the order, and they'd make the shirts. And 6 weeks later, the container would show up in Los Angeles, and they'd put it on trucks, and they'd send it out to all their stores. And by then, Don't Tase Me is not cool anymore because some other thing, like Tazonde, or I don't know if you know. Anyway, somebody else is now hot on YouTube. It's not this guy anymore. So, virtualization. Here's another one called Zazzle. Again, all kinds of cool stuff. Pinocchio is kind of trying to change the way things are made. You can actually, maybe I'm a designer and I want to actually make a table. This is, and I can upload designs, and then they find ways to try to make it for you. Brand new stuff. They've got software that makes, so that anybody can design them and different things like that. I don't have a picture of it, but there's a new company out there called Bug Labs that's trying to do this stuff for electronics. You guys should go look at Bug Labs. They basically have they call it like the core. It's got a certain amount of electronic circuitry in there, and then there's just weird connectors on it, and you can basically build your own little GPS by plugging things together, and they have modules, and so you can create your own consumer electronics. And it's very, very, very early stage stuff. I mean, it's very, it's not like I can build a DVD player, right? But I think you might find that pretty soon that might, those kind of things are happening. So, what's the future of eBusiness? And I answer that question with another question, which is what can be virtualized? Can intentions be virtualized? I think they can. This is called the Google Hot Trends Report. And I can tell you exactly what the world's intentions are at any given minute. And this is, this was on Halloween. So Halloween. This was October 31st. I can tell you exactly what the world's intentions are just by going to the Google Hot Trends Report. Can relationships be virtualized? Facebook, MySpace, LDSsingles.com, Match.com. Those things are being virtualized. Can entire worlds be virtualized? Gaia Online is a virtual world for teenagers. Most of the teenagers that are in this world spend like 5-6 hours a day there. Club Penguin is a virtual world for younger kids. Disney bought Club Penguin for $800 million, and they basically had no revenue. And every kid gets a little penguin avatar. You don't get to design your own. Second Life, you guys know Second Life. It's an entire virtual world. People literally have lives inside of Second Life, and they stop leaving their home. They have relationships. Their entire world, and they've done studies where psychologists work with these people, and there's not a lot of difference between the way they feel about their virtual relationships and when they hook up the brain sensors and they say that they're in love with some other avatar. It's not any different at most levels than me with my wife in the same room. Worlds can be virtualized. I mean, that's some screenshots from Second Life. And so the last thing I have, and I think we'll have just a couple minutes for questions, is can everything be virtualized? So this is a few-minute video. I just want you to listen and watch.
Models more quickly, easily, and affordably than ever, right in your office. Introducing the Z-Printer 450. The Z-Printer 450 brings CAD files to life as realistic physical 3D models with precise detail and brilliant color, and does so 5 to 10 times faster than other systems at less than half the cost. Dramatically present the proposed look, feel, and style of product designs and prototypes. Vividly display architectural visions, and better communicate 3D information in education, healthcare, and the arts, all in ways that electronic displays cannot. The first automated 3D printer, the Z-Printer 450 is remarkably easy to use and very office-friendly with clean, quiet operation. And it's from Z Corporation, the industry leader in color 3D printing technology. The Z-Printer 450 is for those seeking high-quality color 3D models, plus the convenience of an in-house printer to build those models anytime, anywhere. The uniquely automated Z-Printer 450 simplifies the entire 3D printing process. Self-contained and self-monitoring, it manages nearly every aspect of printing, cutting user interaction time by 40%. Simply import your 3D data file into our Z-Print software, position as desired, and follow the prompts. The system automatically checks supplies and printer readiness, ensuring you always have the right amount of materials to complete the job. If supplies need replenishment, it's as easy as inserting a 1-liter binder cartridge, connecting a powder canister for automatic loading, or snapping in a new print head. When ready, click 3D Print and watch your 3D model emerge from the bottom up, one cross-section at a time, in 450 dpi resolution. Advanced inkjet technology builds models 5 to 10 times faster than other rapid prototyping systems, so you get your model in hours, not days. When printing is complete, a vacuum and motion system automatically removes up to 80% of loose powder, and recycles it for future use. Removing the remaining powder is just as easy, using lightly compressed air in an enclosed chamber that vacuums away particles as you go. Plus, with no physical support structures attached to the model, like other printers, you can say goodbye to dangerous scraping tools and chemical baths. Every 3D model emerges clean and ready for finishing with one of 3 processes that vary surface finish to match any application. Choose a quick dip in Z-Bond sealant followed by a short drying period. Get the same effect by dripping Z-Bond over the model, or lightly brush with Z-Max Infiltrant for a strong, brilliant color finish. Regardless of which you choose, you get a smooth, vivid color model that lasts, and you get it fast. In fact, from start to finish, this model was printed, depowdered, and finished in under 4 hours. Best of all, the Z Printer 450 is incredibly office-friendly. With a small footprint, negative pressure dust control, noise suppression, and 0 liquid waste, it's just like any other printer in your office. Everyone can afford to create 3D concept models, functional product prototypes, architectural models, and more, and do it all in-house. It's fast, it's color, it's easy to use, and it's available at a breakthrough low price. It's the Z Printer 450 from Z Corporation. Full color 3D printing whenever you need it.
eBusiness has already significantly changed the world. If you think about the internet as a component of eBusiness, has only been here for 15 years. This exists. It costs $40,000, and they're not working. It's a prototype. But I was kind of thinking the other day, I'm going to be in the workforce for another 30 years, and that's if I retire when I'm 63. So you think about what's happened in 15 years, and then the years before leading up to that, and you think about the fact that things are changing faster today than they did 15 years ago. These are some things to think about when you're looking at your career and when you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Because eBusiness, the virtualization, turning things into ones and zeros where they used to be physical, or at least for a period of time, it's a serious revolution of the way the world is. So I think we actually are out of time, but I know afterwards we do a little reception. There's my information. I have my website. Adobe.com is the company. I answer all the emails I get. If for whatever reason, if you want to email me something, I will always answer my emails. So, but again, I appreciate the chance, for the center having me come up and talk to you guys, and hopefully, you got some ideas and some perspective of kind of where the world might be headed. So, thanks a lot.